True.
So that's how I categorize them. One is traditional, two is behavioral. There might be other types of a category that will come up in the future, but these are currently the two dominant ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to skill interview, and we're talking about, I like the word skill because skill can be broadly applicable to all different interview situations, not just for developers.
Yeah.
And as we said, this is basically where they are trying to see, okay, can you do what you claim that you can do? Now, some skills are easy to verify, while other skills are hard to verify. So, for example, let's say that you are Usain Bolt. Okay. Let's say that someone else don't know who Usain Bolt is, but is gonna hire a runner. Now, all they have to do is say, okay, so run 100 meter, and I'll measure how long it takes for you.
This will take only 5 seconds, 6 seconds.
Right, exactly. Right, but that's a skill interview. See, it's like try to perform there on the spot. It's very easy to see and very easy to verify. And then you can even say, okay, is this good or is this bad? Right? It's like Usain Bolt can run, I don't know, 6 seconds for 100 meters, and while I will take 25 seconds to run the same 100 meter. So if we were the candidates, then I would be disqualified immediately, just by that alone, right? But some other skills are actually quite hard to verify. So, for example, imagine trying to hire a CEO. Okay, so what is it that you're trying to measure CEO on? Are you trying to measure CEO? That you're trying to measure CEO on their ability to rally troops, maybe. Measure CEO on their ability to sell, measure CEO on their ability to basically talk to investors to try to get them onto their side, try to rally the stock market. I mean, honestly, I have no answer to that question. I'm just guessing here. But just imagine how difficult it can be to hire someone like a CEO, and even necessarily had to go up to a level. You can come down a little bit lower. You can come down to say, okay, I want to hire a project manager. Okay, so how are you going to put a project manager on the spot to run the project? It's like now that you have done project management, so you know that project management take you a long time to even just get going. So try to imagine, simulate all that whole thing in a 1 hour time frame. Can someone start a project and finish a project in a single hour interview? The answer is no.
True.
Right? So some skills are very difficult to verify. Now, so in those cases, what people substitute for trying to verify skill is knowledge-based verification. Okay. So obviously that they already have your resume in their hand, and that resume tells them, say, okay, so what kind of experiences you have. So they will ask you questions about your experiences and so on, and they hope that your experiences can corroborate with what they think your skill level is. But beyond that, they might still test you on just some basic stuff. Or it could be advanced. But what I would say is that they are more fundamental, and they could be potentially applicable, applicable. But even when it's applicable, it would still be conceptual. It would be something that you might draw on the whiteboard, demonstrate your knowledge, but it doesn't necessarily ask you to run 100 meter. You know what I mean? It's basically showing how you would do things rather than doing those things yourself.
Right.
Okay. So there's knowledge-based skill questions, and then there's performance-based skill question. The first one that we talk about, running that 100 meter, is a performance-based skill type question. Ask you to perform right in front of people. And the other one is basically, okay, so how would you do it? Then you say, oh, I will do this first, I'll do that second, and then I'll combine them this way to show that you know what you're talking about, right? And these are the broad categories of technical questions that you're either trying to verify someone who has that knowledge, or you're trying to verify someone who can actually perform at that level, basically. Okay?
Yeah.
And obviously, as we said, if you can ask someone to perform right in front of you, it's better than if you're trying to ask someone to tell you how they will perform, because you get a more direct feedback. See how fast someone is running. It's much better than ask someone, say, so how would you run? So that way you will run fast, right? It's like, Usain Bolt might not even be able to tell you how he would run, so that way he can run fast. That's almost more like a different job. That's almost like a running coach. But if you want to hire someone who just runs, you just want to see that person run. If you want to hire a singer, you just want to listen to that person singing. Does that person sing well? Don't ask that person music theory on how singing works. Ask that person to perform. You want to hire a chef? Ask that person to cook, and give you some sample food, right? So whenever you can ask someone to perform, to demonstrate what they can do in front of you, always choose that, because that will give you the most direct feedback. Okay. Now we're coming back into development. Okay. So for developers, the same type of categories of questions also applies. Okay. They will be asked knowledge-based questions, and these could be potentially architecture. So that way they could be asked how to design application, how to write down algorithms, and how to make it fast and things like that. But they can oftentimes, especially a developer, they're also being asked to perform on the spot. And that performance is what a lot of developers dread about, and that is basically writing code in an interview. This is something that these days apparently starting to become at least $1 million industry, I imagine, that people want to talk about. Say, so how do I practice this particular skill so that way I can be successfully interviewing, because I need to know how to write code on the spot when they're being asked, basically, right? So this is how, so these are the different types of questions that are, categories that could happen in the interview. Okay. And so you'll be asked to talk about yourself so people can get to know you. Okay. And you'll be asked to show them that you're as good as what you advertise yourself to be. Basically, what you said in your resume, does it match up? Does your performance match up to what they believe, what they see from your resume is, right? And what type of technical questions would they ask you? Outside of, if we want to go lower level than this, it will fall into one of these categories. But it really, to say specifically what type of question they ask you, it depends on the interviewer. Some interviewers love performance-based questions. Some interviewers love knowledge-based questions. So it depends on the person that you come across. But it also depends on the type of job that you're applying for. Some jobs requires you to know multiple domains, while other jobs require you to be a specialist in a very particular domain. So the hope is that the type of questions will match up against the type of job that you will be asked, you're applying for. However, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the interviewers will really want to do things their way. They don't really care whether or not you're applying for a Java development position. The guy might want to see that you can do not just Java, but also database, also JavaScript, also C++. So the question can potentially go anywhere. And that's also another reason why that you see a lot of developers put a lot of time into preparing for technical questions, because they have no idea of this broad domain of technology. Where is the question going to pop up? Because it just really depends on the person they come across.
I think also they simply lack the experience of explaining it to other people. I mean, let alone in English, because English is often their second language. But just even they can write programs, they can write code, but when it comes to explaining how did you write that code, I think many people would feel hopeless unless they have a practice of actually explaining it, talking to other people about their code.
Yep, totally. So, but this is roughly the breakdown of what questions that I mean, not just developers, but anybody that can come across in any interview situations. As long as it's a proper interview, then these are the type of things that an interviewee should prepare for.
Okay, now I understand. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.